Theme this year hits home, forging the Caribbean's future, strategic solutions for uncertain times. We are a region navigating relentless climate shocks, tightening economic space, and global geopolitical tension. But this week isn't just about identifying problems. It is an action-oriented, solutions-focused blueprint for regional survival and prosperity. Throughout this hour, we will break down exactly what this means for you at home. We will dive into the multi-million-dollar investments transforming Bahamian infrastructure, look at major overhauls in our education system, and celebrate the raw energy of the Youth Fire Forum that just wrapped up last night. We will also be joined throughout the morning by our very own Joshua Williams, who will be on the ground providing live updates from the opening activities. Joshua will be speaking with experts on the topic and gathering feedback from participants. But first, in the run-up in today's opening, young people from throughout the region have been meeting as guests of the Youth Fire Forum. Our Daniel Miller filed this report on day one.
From June 1st to 5th, the Bahamas Convention Center will host the Caribbean Development Bank's 56th annual meeting of the Board of Governors under the theme, Forging the Caribbean's Future, Strategic Solutions for Uncertain Times. This event will gather heads of government, presidents of multilateral development banks, global thought leaders, private investors, and young people from the Caribbean. The meeting is curated as an action-oriented, solutions-focused gathering aimed at enhancing implementation, aligning partners, and generating commitments that will influence Caribbean development for years to come. To directly engage young people as active co-leaders and decision-makers in regional development policy, the organization is hosting a two-day Youth Fire Forum prior to the official opening of the event. On Monday, a room filled with young representatives from various Caribbean nations expressed their concerns regarding community prosperity, the region's digital future, climate issues, energy, violence prevention, health, and more. Jamaica representative and the outgoing co-chair of the CDB's Future Leaders Network, Ashigay Cowell, shared her belief that the forum is not simply a performative effort, but rather a means to achieve meaningful results in policy formulation.
I had the opportunity to work on a action and advocacy agenda that came out on education, and we were able to posit a lot of these youth perspectives that was then put into a larger document that was approved by the heads of government, I think.
The Bahamas Youth Ambassador to the United Nations, Liam Miller, shared that discussions of this nature highlight the common concerns faced as a region. He described the experience as remarkable.
Able to bring young people together, young people who come from different professions, different backgrounds. You're able to bring these young people together in a shared space to share ideas, to discuss, to network, to dialogue.
Tuesday's forum is anticipated to be taken to a new level as industry leaders join the panel discussions, such as our Minister of Youth and Sports and also the President of the Caribbean Development Bank. Reporting for Our News, I'm Danielle Miller.
All right, thanks so much for that, Danielle. Very exciting forum. Well, to kick off our coverage, we look at the engine behind this week's event. The Caribbean Development Bank is the region's premier multilateral finance institution. Its core mission, reducing poverty, tackling inequality, and driving sustainable growth. And joining me now at the desk is Dr. Isaac Solomon. Dr. Solomon, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Taddy, and good morning.
And he is the Vice President of Operations for the CDB. Dr. Solomon, we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right. So, Dr. Solomon, we want to start in plain terms for our viewers watching across the archipelago and the wider Caribbean. What exactly is the CDB? Tell us what does that mean for those who aren't sure?
Okay, great. Thank you, Taddy, and good morning again to everyone looking at this broadcast in the Bahamas and beyond. So, the Caribbean Development Bank was formed 56 years ago as a response to the urgency in the economic fallout of the times. And as you rightly said, our mandate is to transform lives across the region through equitable and inclusive development. I say equitable and inclusive because it means that we are pursuing the development of the region and transforming those lives in a way where we leave no one behind. And so we ensure that the development is equitable, that we take care of the vulnerable and disadvantaged in our midst, women, girls, persons with disabilities, indigenous people, and the poor. And that is our core mandate essentially.
And why is that mandate important to the CDB?
Well, we are a region that is very vulnerable, and we face a lot of legacy challenges. So we have a history of high debt overhang, of fiscal and economic constraints, and of course that is compounded by some reinforcing emerging crises that create a set of vulnerabilities for us that makes it difficult or almost unlikely for us to achieve the sustainable development goals.
Well, the Bahamas is buzzing to host this 56th annual meeting. Why was Nassau chosen to host the event?
That's interesting. So 56 years ago, this institution was born. The Bahamas was a founding member, and incidentally, the inaugural annual meeting was held right here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Interesting to know.
The governorship of the bank rotates. So as you know, at the apex of the governance structure is the Board of Governors, and your own Michael Halkitis is the chairman of the Board of Governors, and it is the practice and custom that wherever whichever country the chairman comes from, that is where the annual meeting is hosted.
Okay, that's very interesting. I did not know that. But what does this signify for the ongoing relationship between the bank and the Bahamas?
Well, as a founding member, we ensure that we support the broad sustainable development of all our borrowing member countries. The relationship we have had with the Bahamas is a very strong one that has seen a lot of transformative investments in the Bahamas, and we intend to continue and to grow that relationship.
I know earlier you spoke about some of the vulnerabilities. What are some of those? We're talking in terms of hurricanes for small island states. We know here in the Bahamas, one of the most devastating hurricanes that the country has ever seen was Hurricane Dorian back in 2019. And that was very tough for the nation and very tough to recover, especially for the islands of Grand Bahama and Abaco. And I am a Grand Bahaman. I thought I would put that in there. And I lived through that storm. So I got to see that firsthand. And it's very difficult. So let's talk a little bit more about some of those vulnerabilities and how the bank is working to.
Yes, that's interesting. So as I said before, we have the legacy issues of economic vulnerabilities to external shocks, to natural hazards, and geophysical hazards as well. So you rightly identified hurricanes, but across the region, those vulnerabilities could appear differently. So in the Northern Caribbean, for example, we encounter hurricanes, which you rightly spoke about. And interestingly, in the last 8 years, we have experienced in the Northern Caribbean 5 Category 5 hurricanes. Now, I need that to sink in for a moment, because these are supposed to be 1 in 100 year events.
Yes.
And we're seeing over the course of 8 years, we had 5 of them.
Yeah,
Now, what that does is that it erodes all the development gains that we would have made. And so as we encounter one shock, we try to rebuild. We incur debt. Before we finish paying that debt, you're hit by another storm. And so you lose a lot of welfare gains as a result of these shocks. But you also have in the Southern Caribbean extreme excess rainfall. So in Guyana and Suriname, they suffer from flooding, so it looks different across the region.
Well, the overarching theme focuses on strategic solutions for uncertain times. Very, very interesting topic from high stakes operational view. What are those specific uncertainties and what definitive strategic solutions is the CDB bringing to the table this week?
Yeah, so I identified some of them, and a lot of those vulnerabilities, as you said, at the top of the program, are really exacerbated by the geopolitical tensions, and they're manifested in a myriad of ways: increased cost of living, supply chain issues, scarcity of supplies, and so on. We just got approved our 10-year strategic plan, and this 10-year strategic plan is developed against the backdrop of the vulnerabilities we just spoke about. And so it's really anchored on resilience. And so we have three development areas, which would be economic, social, and environmental resilience. And those are supported by three priorities areas: investing in youth. You spoke about the youth fire that took place yesterday, strengthening institutions all our lives, the institutions who interact to support our livelihoods, and the climate urgency we just spoke about. We want to ensure that we put the safeguards in place to ensure that we build resilience across the space. Apart from those priority areas, we do have three cross-cutting themes. So what we try to do is to mainstream these in all our activities: so gender, ensuring that women and girls take part in the productive
I've
process.
heard you say that part before with women and girls. Talk
Yes.
about why that's important to the organization.
Well, the entire world has been built in a male-dominated way.
Yes.
That's no secret. We have made a lot of gains in the Caribbean, but there's still a lot to be done
It's
to
hard
ensure.
to break that glass ceiling for women.
Yeah, so we make it a particular priority to ensure that women and girls are included in development conversations across the region. Actually, if you exclude women and girls, you're realizing just half of your potential. And so we want to make sure that we capitalize on the true capacity that resides in the region.
Okay. Dr. Solomon, I want to ask you a real question, and it's just based on a story that we aired last night. And so, we have these regional conferences that take place all over in the Caribbean, and we talk about different issues impacting different small island nations. And the question was posed by a participant from the Youth Fire Forum. Something that she would like to see is not only meeting, but when you bring together a group of people, when you bring together these leaders to actually put these plans and actions into place, take it out of the meeting room and actually make it happen, some of the issues that you discussed. So how as a people do we make that happen?
Yeah, well, we make it a deliberate choice that we don't only speak. We try to move from ideas to action to implementation. I think we have done that with a fair degree of success. As I said, we do it in a way where we include everyone in the conversation so that we are not creating solutions for people without people. And so at every turn, we try to ensure that everyone is involved in the development. We do have an excellent track record of delivery across the region in all of the spheres that I spoke about. And as the environment becomes more complex, we are driving more innovation just to ensure that we remain relevant and we're fit for purpose. So,
Innovation is very important. We see AI and everything now taking over the world, technology. Talk about how the bank has been able to, I guess, incorporate that into what they're doing here.
yes, so all our projects, we ensure that there is that innovation and digital transformation lens to ensure that we capture the true spirit of innovation by embracing technology.
And I think we got to see that during the youth forum, which was heavily displayed on various social media platforms.
Yes, yeah, that was electric.
Yes, very nice. Well, the bank operates across 19 distinct borrowing countries with so many competing regional needs. How do you ensure that the specific unique vulnerabilities of the Bahamas and other small island states remain a top priority?
So the solutions that we forge are not top-down, they're bottom-up. So they are driven in large measure by the country. So our primary mode of intervention would be through policy advice, through technical assistance, and through capital investment. And those are formulated from discussions in countries. And that's, we essentially support the national agendas for all our borrowing member countries.
And this wraps up at the end of the week. Talk about what you would like to see come out of this.
Well, generally in the Bahamas, I would love if there is a greater appreciation for how we are transforming lives for all of the citizens, not only in the Bahamas, but the entire Caribbean, how we are building resilience against the vulnerabilities which threaten our livelihoods.
All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Solomon. And thank you for setting the stage for us this morning. I think that's very important, especially to our viewers who may not understand what it is that the CDB does here in the region. And of course, we will look forward to the president's keynote shortly. Well, I am joined now by our news reporter, Joshua Williams, who is covering today's opening ceremony and joins us from inside the convention center as well. Josh, what can you tell us?
Resort is just after 8:15 local time, and of course, as you mentioned, this is the 56th meeting for the CDB annual Governor's Board meeting. Of course, the meeting last year would have been held in Brazil, and for those of you that might not exactly understand what's going on, this is an annual meeting where heads of government, financial experts, critical thinkers, and more importantly for me as a Caribbean youth, Caribbean young professionals across the region are meeting to discuss things that are critical to us. Of course, we live in a time where our region is impacted by geopolitical disruption, climate change, fiscal constraints, and later on scheduled to give the keynote address will be CDB President Daniel Best, and he's known for his attention to detail and focus in areas such as expansion in opportunities for youth, women, and girls all across the diaspora. And one of the features of this week in particular is where I'm standing right now. This is the Impact Room, and if you look around, you'll see there are several booths that are still set up, that were set up from Monday. Actually, we have the Bahamas Development Bank, Caribbean Technological Consultancy Services, the International Trade Center. And of course, all throughout this week, there have been conversations centered around things like climate change, finance, expanded opportunities for young people. And so often we hear the complaint coming from young people across the region is that there is no platform for young people to stand up. There is no space for ideas to be shared, especially when it comes to their future. So that's what's going on here this morning. Of course, we're standing by here in the Bahamas Convention Center. The sessions won't wrap up after the official opening ceremony. We'll be right back in here later this afternoon and heading in tomorrow. So Italia, I'm standing by and I'm looking forward to an exciting day.
Bank right here in the Bahamas.
Yeah, all right.
Caribbean businesses pay up to 4 times more for electricity than in the United States. For any business trying to grow, that's a death sentence. Renewable energy potential is here, with regulatory barriers, financial gaps, and aging infrastructure are crippling the transition. This is why the Caribbean Development Bank is convening an action-oriented dialogue, Energy Transition, the key to a more resilient Caribbean. We are moving from identifying the problem to engineering the solution. It is time to unlock the region's single greatest opportunity, using sustainable energy to secure our economic destiny. Join us live online on Thursday, June 4th at 9 a.m. Let's make energy work for us. Picture this, a Caribbean economy pursuing growth, investing in infrastructure, building resilience, and yet buckling under the weight of debt. Debt that was manageable until interest rates spiked, until the hurricane hit, until a global shock struck. But new approaches are emerging. Together with partners, the Caribbean Development Bank is redefining how debt is structured, reducing costs, and linking debt relief directly to development outcomes. The CDB seminar on innovative debt solutions will examine bold financing tools that can redefine how the Caribbean escapes the debt trap. Getting this right is not optional. Be part of the solution. Join us online live on Thursday, June 4th at 2:30 p.m. A trade war erupts. Commodity prices spike. A geopolitical crisis unfolds thousands of miles away. But within weeks, the Caribbean feels it. Higher prices, tighter fiscal space, economies absorbing shocks they cannot control. External threats are reshaping the region. The question is, Is the region ready to face them? EdgeX Analytics Unlocked is the Caribbean Development Bank's new platform built for this kind of analysis. It launches with shockwaves, how global crises are hitting the Caribbean. The region cannot respond to what it hasn't clearly measured. EdgeX will deliver the data and the analysis to chart the path forward. Watch the broadcast Friday, June 5th at 2 p.m. This is where knowledge becomes strategy. Don't miss it. You're stuck in traffic again. But that gridlock isn't just frustrating you, it's quietly strangling the Caribbean's growth. Lost productivity, stagnating economies, competitiveness quietly eroding every single day. Traffic congestion is no longer just a transport problem. It's a measurable drag on regional development, a constraint that hasn't been adequately addressed until now. The Caribbean Development Bank is unveiling EdgeX Analytics Unlocked, a bold new platform turning cutting-edge regional research into real policy action. First under the microscope, stuck in traffic. What congestion is costing the Caribbean? Data, modeling, analysis, and a frank conversation about what must change, because the region cannot afford to keep absorbing losses. Join us online Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. This is where analysis becomes action. Don't miss it. Category 5 storms, catastrophic floods, budgets obliterated, economies buckling. At the same time, prices are rising, debt is mounting, and support systems are straining. The Caribbean is caught between the climate crisis and a fragmenting global financial order, and time is running out. At the 56th annual meeting, the Caribbean Development Bank is assembling leaders on the front line of climate action and international development finance. It's a frank, high-level reckoning with what must fundamentally and urgently change in the global financial order to meet the realities of small and vulnerable states. The Breakfast Exchange, a climate talk on the global economy. Join us live on Thursday, June 4th at 8 a.m. This is a conversation the region cannot delay.
Welcome back to Our TV Presents live coverage of the opening of the Caribbean Development Bank 56th annual meeting. I'm your host, Italia Hall Thomas. If you live in the Bahamas, you know that climate change isn't just a theoretical debate, it's a daily reality. The cost of fuel, infrastructure damage from superstorms, and the safety of our water supply are top of mind in recent years. The CDB has stepped up, committing to over $110 million to water and climate resilience projects right here in this country. Well, it's a little loud in the background, but here, joining me now to dig into this massive infrastructure pipeline is Mr. William Ashby. Mr. Ashby, thank you so much for being with us. And he's the Acting Division Chief of Economic Infrastructure for the CDB. Thank you so much again for being with us.
My pleasure to be here.
Yes. So, Mr. Ashby, let's talk about that figure, $110 million. That's a significant injection of capital. What's driving that intense level of target investment into the Bahamian infrastructure?
So that amount is principally looking at our investments in the water sector at this point in time. We've actually got right now 3 active water sector projects. One is about to close, that was approved in 2015. There's another which was approved last year, and that was in the amount of $47 million. And at the Board of Directors meeting just this past Monday, a new project was approved, and that amount was $64.8 million. And that includes a large grant from the Green Climate Fund, actually about $37 million in grant funding to the Bahamas. So, I mean, we're really proud about that. It's a very large single country program. And what's driving that, as you asked, really is the scale of the climate challenge that the Bahamas faces. particularly in the water sector. And generally across the Caribbean, there's the same challenge. So as the premier development finance institution in the region, we really see it as our challenge as well to mobilize that sort of concessional resourcing to support our borrowing member countries. So if I could tell you a little bit more, about that. So largely, we are looking at infrastructure in the first instance in the project approved in 2025. So we're looking at largely, again, the Family Islands, but also New Providence, modernizing transmission infrastructure, enhancing storage systems, water production facilities, making them more resilient to withstand climate shocks. And in the new project with the DCF, we are going beyond that to look also at more issues of regulation, issues of strengthening the capacity of the institutions to do their work through enhancing data availability and processing and management of that data, and generally institutional resilience, because those align really with the strategic objectives of the Caribbean Development Bank and our new strategic plan. So we're working beyond the water sector as well in many other areas, education and in fact, institutional resilience and the disaster risk management space itself. But I hope that gives you a sense of where we're starting.
I want to ask more about the water project. We know the water sector resilience project involves a key partnership with the Global Green Climate Fund. What does that partnership look like logistically, and why should the average citizen care about it?
So the previous two water projects also involve strong partnerships.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, in fact, there is something called the Climate Action Line of Credit. It's the line of concessional resources, CDB access from the European Investment Bank, and there have been tremendous partners for us. And the Bahamas was really the first country where we mobilized that Climate Action Line of Credit starting around 2015. So what that does is to actually reduce the cost of borrowing for the government. So that's the strength there. And in the case, as I said, of the Green Climate Fund, we're able to mobilize that, 37 million in grant out of a total financing package of 64.8 million. So we get to draw on the climate expertise of the global community, and especially the Green Climate Fund, and to utilize best practices really in strengthening resilience across our region. So but I will say mobilizing concessional resourcing is one key thing, but also the technical assistance and technical expertise that we're able to leverage from these partnerships. In some cases, for example, they will provide free consulting services to help our countries to develop projects. In the water sector, we've got, again, with the European Investment Bank, something happening at the moment called the Water Management and Clean Ocean Framework Loan. That isn't being used on this particular initiative, but through that, we've got a firm of consultants working already in some of our countries who are able to help to develop projects more fully, because the better prepared a project is, the smoother implementation happens, and the more likely we are to actually achieve the development outcomes, and development effectiveness is absolutely critical to the work of the bank. Yeah.
For sure. I want our viewers watching, I want them to fully understand the impact of the bank and what it is that you do for us here in the Bahamas and the region. So let's bring this home for a resident watching us right now on one of our family islands, whether it's Abaco, Eleuthera, or Exuma. What will these multi-million-dollar investments actually feel like in their daily lives?
Yeah. And I've been working in the Bahamas since about 2009. And
wow.
Yeah,
That's a very long time.
I've been to almost
over a decade.
All of the family islands,
it's
actually.
2 decades, actually.
It's a long time. And, walking through communities and speaking to people, we understand the impact of where you've got limited coverage in the water supply service. There might be issues in reliability, in water quality, and certainly the climate hazard is huge. We know when islands have been impacted by hurricanes. There is damage to transmission lines. And so these projects will really help to address a lot of those challenges. So there will be more reliable, resilient water supply. In terms of water, the water supply itself, I know the Bahamas depends a lot on desalination. So part of this new project is targeted as well at strengthening the resilience of the groundwater supply, which could have implications in the future for improving access and reducing the cost of water, but generally having better water security, so it's more available, more affordable, more accessible. And those things obviously will be, felt all across the family islands, and we expect really to impact about 200,000 people through these projects
that's really
directly.
Big, very impactful. I know you said you've been here from 2009. I was talking to Dr. Solomon earlier, and I was telling him I am a Grand Bahamian that lived through Hurricane Dorian in 2019. You talked about assistance provided after these mega storms. Talk about a Hurricane Dorian. What did that look like in terms of your support and help to the Bahamas immediately after that storm?
Yeah. So immediately after that storm, I was actually here. I was in this hotel actually.
So you came straight to the Bahamas after that storm you were on the ground. That's big.
I did. So the bank has a suite of assistance that we provide or we offer to our borrowing member countries is the term we use, our client countries, to help in the aftermath of events. So and most countries will immediately accept a grant for humanitarian support, and that is now in the range of about $200,000. It might have been a bit less back when Dorian impacted, but there's that. And we also offer what is called an immediate response loan. It was $750,000, now it's $5 million, which helps in the restoration of essential services in the immediate aftermath of natural hazard impacts. And that can also help with long-term planning.
Yeah, but something like Dorian, that was unprecedented. The damage was massive on Grand Bahama and Abaco. So how do you help countries through that?
Right. So in the case of the Bahamas specifically, one initiative that the bank undertook was a technical assistance project to strengthen the disaster risk management capacity in the Bahamas. So through that project, we are helping the government to do things like develop evacuation frameworks for vulnerable communities. I'm here trying to remember all of the things.
That's very interesting what you've provided
One
so
thing
far.
is continuity of services, continuity of government services in the aftermath of hazards, because being able to continue to function as a government and to provide those services, that's very important, and that's the sort of thing that technical assistance is also working to do.
This helps the government as well for future storms, how to better prepare and get its citizens ready.
Absolutely, because for CDB, our strategic plan hinges on 3 pillars. It's all about resilience, so environmental, social, and economic resilience. So just about everything that we do, not just about everything we do, aligns with those 3 objectives. And now as well, there are 3 operational priorities we're working with youth, strengthening climate resilience, and strengthening institutions. So wherever possible as well, our initiatives will be governed by those operational priorities.
All right, real solutions for everyday Bahamians.
That's right.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ashby. Thank you for that detailed breakdown. I'm sure our audience would appreciate it. Well, when our live coverage returns, a look at the millions of dollars invested in education and skills development by the CDB in the Bahamas.
Picture this, a Caribbean economy pursuing growth, investing in infrastructure, building resilience, and yet buckling under the weight of debt. Debt that was manageable until interest rates spiked, until the hurricane hit, until a global shock struck. But new approaches are emerging. Together with partners, the Caribbean Development Bank is redefining how debt is structured, reducing costs, and linking debt relief directly to development outcomes. The CDB seminar on innovative debt solutions will examine bold financing tools that can redefine how the Caribbean escapes the debt trap. Getting this right is not optional. Be part of the solution. Join us online live on Thursday, June 4th at 2:30 p.m. Category 5 storms, catastrophic floods, budgets obliterated, economies buckling. At the same time, prices are rising, debt is mounting, and support systems are straining. The Caribbean is caught between the climate crisis and a fragmenting global financial order, and time is running out. At the 56th annual meeting, the Caribbean Development Bank is assembling leaders on the front line of climate action and international development finance. It's a frank, high-level reckoning with what must fundamentally and urgently change in the global financial order to meet the realities of small and vulnerable states. The Breakfast Exchange, a climate talk on the global economy. Join us live on Thursday, June 4th at 8 a.m. This is a conversation the region cannot delay. Caribbean businesses pay up to 4 times more for electricity than in the United States. For any business trying to grow, that's a death sentence. Renewable energy potential is here, but regulatory barriers, financial gaps, and aging infrastructure are crippling the transition. This is why the Caribbean Development Bank is convening an action-oriented dialogue, Energy Transition, the key to a more resilient Caribbean. We are moving from identifying the problem to engineering the solution. It is time to unlock the region's single greatest opportunity, using sustainable energy to secure our economic destiny. Join us live online on Thursday, June 4th at 9 a.m. Let's make energy work for us. You're stuck in traffic again. But that gridlock isn't just frustrating you, it's quietly strangling the Caribbean's growth. Lost productivity, stagnating economies, competitiveness quietly eroding every single day. Traffic congestion is no longer just a transport problem. It's a measurable drag on regional development, a constraint that hasn't been adequately addressed until now. The Caribbean Development Bank is unveiling EdgeX, Analytics Unlocked, a bold new platform turning cutting-edge regional research into real policy action. First under the microscope, stuck in traffic. What congestion is costing the Caribbean? Data, modeling, analysis, and a frank conversation about what must change, because the region cannot afford to keep absorbing losses. Join us online, Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. This is where analysis becomes action. Don't miss it. A trade war erupts. Commodity prices spike. A geopolitical crisis unfolds thousands of miles away. But within weeks, the Caribbean feels it. Higher prices, tighter fiscal space, economies absorbing shocks they cannot control. External threats are reshaping the region. The question is the region ready to face them? EdgeX, Analytics Unlocked, is the Caribbean Development Bank's new platform built for this kind of analysis. It launches with shockwaves, how global crises are hitting the Caribbean. The region cannot respond to what it hasn't clearly measured. EdgeX will deliver the data and the analysis to chart the path forward. Watch the broadcast Friday, June 5th at 2 p.m. This is where knowledge becomes strategy. Don't miss it.
Welcome back. You are watching Our TV Presents, a live coverage of the opening of the Caribbean Development Bank 56th annual meeting. I'm your host, it's Talia Hall Thomas. As we move closer to the start of today's opening ceremony, over the last 2 days, the energy inside the Bahamas Resorts Convention Center, the atmosphere has been absolutely electric. I've been able to witness that with all of the various interviews and from some of our reporters here on the ground. But before the senior governors even arrive, young leaders, innovators, and change makers from every corner of the Caribbean took center stage for the Youth Fire Forum, which wrapped up last night. On Tuesday, representatives of the Future Leaders Network engaged in a private session to discuss recommendations, commitments, and priority actions. Before finalizing the document, we spoke with several participants regarding their primary regional concerns. Rianka Chance of St. Vincent and the Grenadines said regional discussions like these are important, but she would like to see the conversations lead to tangible action beyond the meeting room.
It is one thing to have those quote unquote meaningful discussions, but it's another thing when you have the meaningful discussions but you leave it there. You don't go outside and actually put it into action to see what those discussions could have really brought to reality.
And Dominique Williams, the Future Leaders Network representative from St. Kitts and Nevis, says the Youth Fire Forum provides a valuable platform for young people to share their ideas.
I think young people are the innovators and the drivers of what comes next in the region. But I also believe that we are effectively what makes up the present. In preparing for this conference and doing research, young people under the age of 25, I believe, makes up 34% of our population. And then when you raise the number to 40s, then it reaches up to, we comprise 50% of the population. And so I think that goes to show that, for societies that reflect us, how much of our voices are being reflected. And so even within this forum, I think, there is still so much room for us to actually be like, okay, now we're here and now we're able to talk to people. But then when it comes to what makes it into the fine print, where is capital being allocated?
All right, and joining me now to look back at this dynamic platform is Ms. Kendra Butler. She's the operations officer at the CDB. Kendra, it's great to have you.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, so we saw a glimpse of the Youth Fire Forum, and it's been an exciting 2 days. And I know that you've been behind all of the planning, trying to put it all together. And as we can see, it's been a huge success. Well, the Youth Fire Forum just concluded its 2-day session, the first and the second. Set the scene for our viewers who don't really understand what the Youth Fire Forum was all about, so they understand fully what took place over the past 2 days.
Okay, so the Youth Fire Forum, Youth for Innovation and Resilience, is one of CDB's flagship programs. We gather yearly 19 young persons from CDB's borough member countries to discuss solutions, to discuss the challenges, and to create and to share their innovations across the region. This year, we have the privilege to be in the lovely Bahamas. And we took that opportunity really to bring together Bahamian youth as well as members from our cohorts 1 and 2 of the CDB's Future Leaders Network. And we really gathered and focused on the solutions that young people have been doing over the past years. I know most of the time we highlight young persons, the challenges young people face, but at the same time, our youth are doing great things. They are creating innovations, and we wanted that opportunity for our partners, other financiers, to see the work that young people are doing and how these solutions can be scaled up, and opportunities for partnership as well.
I think what was very interesting when I first heard about the CDB coming here to the Bahamas, the fact that it was going to be a 2-day Youth Fire Forum. Usually you hear about these mega regional conferences, but the youth aren't always a part of that conversation. And obviously being a young person, I know that we have a lot to offer. And so I think that's very, very impressive. Talk about why it's important for the organization to include the youth in conversations like these. I think you mentioned, or you touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think it's very impressive that your youth are a part of these conversations. You don't see that too often in the region. Usually we have the older generation talking about serious issues like these.
Yeah, so the bank recognized that, and I think most of us recognize that in the region, our youth are are the main, they have the highest population in the region, and all all these issues are affecting them, and we recognize that we cannot create or make change without them. They are the ones that are driving most of the innovation, especially in the digital space. Or older professionals,
And it may sound cliche, but the youth are the future. We are going to be the ones to, carry these countries. So it's important to be a part of that conversation. Yeah.
And especially the fact that we're in a more digital age, and our young people are very quick in terms of how we develop these solutions, and most of it is through digitalization. So I think it's very key that we engage our young people.
Well, we've seen standard youth conferences that feel like mere box ticking exercises, but what makes the Youth Fire Forum different? What makes it more engaging? What makes it treat it as if these young voices are true co-architects of the region's future?
So, young persons, Caribbean youth, we're very creative.
We are.
So, usually these youth panels, they're normally just a talk shop. You come, you share, you discuss the issues, no solutions. But this year, we decided to bridge the gap with knowledge and creativity. Our young persons told stories. They told stories about the challenges, about the work that they've been doing in their communities and around the region. And really, apart from the stories that show the impact that they're doing and opportunities for scalability, we also featured youth currently in innovative spaces. So we had a showcase, or what we call an innovation hub for the Gen Zs. Yeah, they had a hub and they showcased some great solutions. We had someone focusing on drones and how they're using that for environmental sustainability. It was amazing how they're bridging entrepreneurship with tackling social, environmental, and other economic issues.
Among these topics, what would you say the youth were most interested in?
I think the digitalization session was very good. They linked the use of digital and data, and the importance of using data to fill the gaps, as well as how they explain how these gaps affect how we make decisions. And I think that was an amazing session, as well as some of the stories on social resilience. There were some very inspiring stories on how previous work enable young persons to develop.
Well, the Youth Fire Forum is over. Tell us what's next for these young leaders. How will the CDB support them once they return home to their respective countries?
Yeah. So the Youth Fire Forum really is the beginning. At the end of the forum, the young persons or youth delivered an outcome statement, which will set the stage for the youth work plan. And this work plan will cover, all what was discussed, the challenges, and how we can scale the solutions that were presented from the outcome statement. And so we're keeping that momentum and ensuring that young persons are in the room everywhere and contributing to the solutions.
All right. Thank you so much, Kendra. Very informative. All right. Thank you. Well, when we come back, a look at the two-day Youth Fire Forum, some more in the Impact Room, as well as two unique features. And we're checking with our Joshua Williams. Stay with us.
Picture this: a Caribbean economy pursuing growth, investing in infrastructure, building resilience, and yet buckling under the weight of debt. Debt that was manageable until interest rates spiked, until the hurricane hit, until a global shock struck. But new approaches are emerging. Together with partners, the Caribbean Development Bank is redefining how debt is structured, reducing costs, and linking debt relief directly to development outcomes. The CDB seminar on innovative debt solutions will examine bold financing tools that can redefine how the Caribbean escapes the debt trap. Getting this right is not optional. Be part of the solution. Join us online live on Thursday, June 4th at 2:30 p.m. You're stuck in traffic again. But that gridlock isn't just frustrating you, it's quietly strangling the Caribbean's growth. Lost productivity, stagnating economies, competitiveness quietly eroding every single day. Traffic congestion is no longer just a transport problem. It's a measurable drag on regional development, a constraint that hasn't been adequately addressed until now. The Caribbean Development Bank is unveiling EdgeX, Analytics Unlocked, a bold new platform turning cutting-edge regional research into real policy action. First under the microscope, stuck in traffic. What congestion is costing the Caribbean? Data, modeling, analysis, and a frank conversation about what must change, because the region cannot afford to keep absorbing losses. Join us online, Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. This is where analysis becomes action. Don't miss it. Caribbean businesses pay up to 4 times more for electricity than in the United States. For any business trying to grow, that's a death sentence. Renewable energy potential is here, with regulatory barriers, financial gaps, and aging infrastructure are crippling the transition. This is why the Caribbean Development Bank is convening an action-oriented dialogue, Energy Transition, the key to a more resilient Caribbean. We are moving from identifying the problem to engineering the solution. It is time to unlock the region's single greatest opportunity, using sustainable energy to secure our economic destiny. Join us live online on Thursday, June 4th at 9 a.m. Let's make energy work for us. Category 5 storms, catastrophic floods, budgets obliterated, economies buckling. At the same time, prices are rising, debt is mounting, and support systems are straining. The Caribbean is caught between the climate crisis and a fragmenting global financial order, and time is running out. At the 56th annual meeting, the Caribbean Development Bank is assembling leaders on the front line of climate action and international development finance. It's a frank, high-level reckoning with what must fundamentally and urgently change in the global financial order to meet the realities of small and vulnerable states. The Breakfast Exchange, a climate talk on the global economy. Join us live on Thursday, June 4th at 8 a.m. This is a conversation the region cannot delay. A trade war erupts. Commodity prices spike. A geopolitical crisis unfolds thousands of miles away. But within weeks, the Caribbean feels it. Higher prices, tighter fiscal space, economies absorbing shocks they cannot control. External threats are reshaping the region. The question is the region ready to face them? EdgeX, Analytics Unlocked, is the Caribbean Development Bank's new platform built for this kind of analysis. It launches with shockwaves, how global crises are hitting the Caribbean. The region cannot respond to what it hasn't clearly measured. EdgeX will deliver the data and the analysis to chart the path forward. Watch the broadcast Friday, June 5th at 2 p.m. This is where knowledge becomes strategy. Don't miss it.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is Our TV presents live coverage of the opening of the Caribbean Development Bank's 56th annual meeting. I'm your host, Natalia Hall Thomas. While physical infrastructure keeps the water running and the lights on, human infrastructure is what moves a country forward. Economic growth is meaningless if our workforce doesn't have the skills to drive it. To that end, the CDB has invested more than $50 million into education, technical training, and workforce development across the Commonwealth of Bahamas. And to look at how this money is changing lives, I'm joined by Dr. Martin Baptiste, the Division Chief of the Social Sector of the CDB. Good morning, Mr. Baptiste, and thank you so much, Dr. Baptiste. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We want to talk about the $50 million, which is a major commitment to Bahamian education. What is the ultimate long-term goal of this investment to our classrooms in the country?
Well, the investment in education is a very important part of how the government and the ministry is ensuring that the human capital in Bahamas is developed. And so the funding that we've had have spanned three sectors. Basic education, where we are supporting, for example, the build out of the East Grand Bahama High Comprehensive School, and technical and vocational education and training, which, as you know, is very important to have young people prepared and the skills ready to enter the workforce and become part of the productive workforce for the development of the Bahamas in the key economic sectors, for example, hospitality, technology, AI, and of course engineering as well.
Okay, I heard you talk about jobs and the workforce. Jobs, career paths, and economic security are top of mind for young people and Bahamians. How does this social sector work directly to bridge the gap between sitting in a classroom and securing real sustainable employment outcomes in a competitive market?
Well, what we've done in the region is to recognize that it is not really simply to have students in school to learn English and the general studies, but how do you prepare them in a competency based on the environment where at the end of the certification, they are ready to transition to the workforce and begin to be productive, not only employers, but also as entrepreneurs. And so the program we have, for example, in the Bahamas Polytechnical Accreditation Training Hub by the ministry is about building out the skills of the Bahamian young people in a way that they are ready for work and they're ready as entrepreneurs to start their business, but to become productive in the economic activities of the country.
Let's look at a concrete example. The Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute, BTVI, recently wrapped up a comprehensive CDB supported project for these young people and adult learners considering enrollment there. What changed structurally and academically?
Well, one of the things we did under the BTVI was to assist in the refurbishment of the Grand Bahama campus. There was also some work we did in training, in digitization, but also the governance arrangement so that BTVI is positioned to go to the next level, certainly at the apex of the training system in the Bahamas for skills training, to make sure that it builds out the infrastructure and the capacity to train Bahamian youth over the next few years.
Well, investing in the nation's future, that's the key goal.
Sure, our people is our greatest asset, and for small societies, we cannot afford not to have every person skilled and ready to work and to make a contribution to work and also for their lives and livelihood.
All right, thank you so much for your feedback, Dr. Baptiste. We appreciate you being here with us this morning. Well, we are getting closer to the start of this morning's official program. Is set to start. As you can hear behind me, the police car band, they're getting ready to go. But I also want to remind our viewers to check out the CDB's private sector outreach through the Impact Room showcase happening throughout the week, a space dedicated to connecting innovative regional projects with serious private investors. But our Joshua Williams has been on the ground throughout the morning. Joshua, can you give us an update from your vantage point? Where are you and what's happening?
Very quickly, Natalia, we've joined you guys here in the main conference room. Of course, we're about to start any minute now. The room is beginning to fill up. You hear the Royal Bahamas Police Force pop band that's beginning to play. Very soon you will see a procession of delegates just behind me, and of course we have representation from the CARICOM countries as well as countries outside the region, including the United States, United Kingdom, China, Canada. So this is a global event. All eyes are on this event this morning. And of course, this will be hosted by our very own Minister of Finance here in the Bahamas, the Honorable Michael Alcides, and we expect to hear a keynote address from the CDB President, Mr. David Best. So things are about to start here in short order. We invite you to stay tuned to our TV. We'll have all of the proceedings live, and then of course those youth fire forum sessions will continue following the opening ceremony.
Thank you so much for that, Joshua. Well, we'll be back with more right after this quick break.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I get it.
Picture this: a Caribbean economy pursuing growth, investing in infrastructure, building resilience, and yet buckling under the weight of debt. Debt that was manageable until interest rates spiked, until the hurricane hit, until a global shock struck. But new approaches are emerging. Together with partners, the Caribbean Development Bank is redefining how debt is structured, reducing costs, and linking debt relief directly to development outcomes. The CDB seminar on innovative debt solutions will examine bold financing tools that can redefine how the Caribbean escapes the debt trap. Getting this right is not optional. Be part of the solution. Join us online live on Thursday, June 4th at 2:30 p.m. A trade war erupts. Commodity prices spike. A geopolitical crisis unfolds thousands of miles away. But within weeks, the Caribbean feels it. Higher prices, tighter fiscal space, economies absorbing shocks they cannot control. External threats are reshaping the region. The question is the region ready to face them? EdgeX Analytics Unlocked is the Caribbean Development Bank's new platform built for this kind of analysis. It launches with shockwaves, how global crises are hitting the Caribbean. The region cannot respond to what it hasn't clearly measured. EdgeX will deliver the data and the analysis to chart the path forward. Watch the broadcast Friday, June 5th at 2 p.m. This is where knowledge becomes strategy. Don't miss it. Caribbean businesses pay up to 4 times more for electricity than in the United States. For any business trying to grow, that's a death sentence. Renewable energy potential is here, but regulatory barriers, financial gaps, and aging infrastructure are crippling the transition. This is why the Caribbean Development Bank is convening an action-oriented dialogue, Energy Transition, the key to a more resilient Caribbean. We are moving from identifying the problem to engineering the solution. It is time to unlock the region's single greatest opportunity, using sustainable energy to secure our economic destiny. Join us live online on Thursday, June 4th at 9 a.m. Let's make energy work for us. Category 5 storms, catastrophic floods, budgets obliterated, economies buckling. At the same time, prices are rising, debt is mounting, and support systems are straining. The Caribbean is caught between the climate crisis and a fragmenting global financial order, and time is running out. At the 56th annual meeting, the Caribbean Development Bank is assembling leaders on the front line of climate action and international development finance. It's a frank, high-level reckoning with what must fundamentally and urgently change in the global financial order to meet the realities of small and vulnerable states. The Breakfast Exchange, a climate talk on the global economy. Join us live on Thursday, June 4th at 8 a.m. This is a conversation the region cannot delay. You're stuck in traffic again. But that gridlock isn't just frustrating you, it's quietly strangling the Caribbean's growth. Lost productivity, stagnating economies, competitiveness quietly eroding every single day. Traffic congestion is no longer just a transport problem. It's a measurable drag on regional development, a constraint that hasn't been adequately addressed until now. The Caribbean Development Bank is unveiling EdgeX Analytics Unlocked, a bold new platform turning cutting-edge regional research into real policy action. First under the microscope, stuck in traffic. What congestion is costing the Caribbean? Data, modeling, analysis, and a frank conversation about what must change, because the region cannot afford to keep absorbing losses. Join us online Friday, June 5th at 10 a.m. This is where analysis becomes action. Don't miss it. A trade war erupts. Commodity prices spike. A geopolitical crisis unfolds thousands of miles away. But within weeks, the Caribbean feels it. Higher prices, tighter fiscal space, economies absorbing shocks they cannot control. External threats are reshaping the region. The question is the region ready to face them? EdgeX, Analytics Unlocked, is the Caribbean Development Bank's new platform built for this kind of analysis. It launches with shockwaves, how global crises are hitting the Caribbean. The region cannot respond to what it hasn't clearly measured. EdgeX will deliver the data and the analysis to chart the path forward. Watch the broadcast Friday, June 5th at 2 p.m. This is where knowledge becomes strategy. Don't miss it. Picture this: a Caribbean economy pursuing growth, investing in infrastructure, building resilience, and yet buckling under the weight of debt. Debt that was manageable until interest rates spiked, until the hurricane hit, until a global shock struck. But new approaches are emerging. Together with partners, the Caribbean Development Bank is redefining how debt is structured, reducing costs, and linking debt relief directly to development outcomes. The CDB seminar on innovative debt solutions will examine bold financing tools that can redefine how the Caribbean escapes the debt trap. Getting this right is not optional. Be part of the solution. Join us online live on Thursday, June 4th at 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You are watching Our TV Presents a live coverage of the opening of the Caribbean Development Bank 56th annual meeting. I'm your host, it's Halia Hall Thomas, and I can tell you things are getting really exciting as the organization prepares for their meeting that is set to get underway. And joining me now is Camille Taylor, the head of corporate communications. And Camille, I know we've met several weeks ago, but thank you so much for joining us here today. So we just want to talk a little bit about this week, some of the things that happened and how things have been going so far.
Things have been amazing. It is great to be here in the beautiful Bahamas. And so we kicked things off on Monday with our youth forum, and that was 2 days of an immersive experience with our young leaders from here in the Bahamas, and then also young persons we brought from all over the region. And they had 2 days of an intense caucus that kicked everything off on the right foot.
And long before this week, Camille, you've been on the ground, you've been working, you've been sending emails, you've been making the calls. Talk about what all went into putting this together. I'm sure it's been some long days, nights, and lots of meetings.
It was a massive undertaking. Fortunately, there was great partnership between the Caribbean Development Bank and the government of the Bahamas. We have over 450 guests here participating. This is everything from premiers to ministers of government, heads of entities from across the region, and leadership from our international partners from all over the globe. And then, of course, we have our young people, we have private sector participants, and our own CDB crew.
All right. Thank you so much, Camille, the head of communications. Well, the stage is set, the delegates are seated, and the gravity of this moment is clear. Moments from now, the Caribbean Development Bank's highest decision-making body, the Board of Governors, will be introduced. Then we will hear the highly anticipated landmark policy address from the CDB President, Daniel Mbest. He will outline the internal transformation of the bank and issue a definitive roadmap for how the Caribbean can forge its future in these highly uncertain times. Let's take you live now to the main hall for the official opening ceremony of the 56th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank.
No problem. Okay, just making sure we play on our end.
Not someday, but now. The Caribbean Development Bank, we're turning action into impact for our region. Right now, leaders, partners, investors, innovators, and youth have gathered in Nassau, Bahamas. This is not just a meeting, it's a mandate to shape strategic solutions for uncertain times, empowering youth, strengthening institutions, and accelerating climate action to build a future that is resilient, inclusive, and unmistakably Caribbean. The moment is here. Let us seize it. Welcome to the 56th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank. Together, we will forge the Caribbean's future.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests joining us here and across the region and around the world online via live broadcast in the Bahamas, Belize, and across the Caribbean. Good morning. On behalf of the government and people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, it is my distinct honor and privilege to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the 56th annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the Caribbean Development Bank. Before we proceed, please permit me to acknowledge distinguished guests joining us this morning. The Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, members of Cabinet, honorable parliamentarians, members of the Diplomatic Corps, senior government officials, leaders of the private sector and civil society, representatives of regional and international organizations, members of the clergy, specially invited guests, members of the media, and again, all those joining us via live broadcast across our region and across the world. Your presence today reflects our shared commitment to regional cooperation, sustainable development, and the continued advancement of the Caribbean people. My name is Barry Griffin, former Vice President of the Senate in the Bahamas and current Chairman of the Bahamas Trade Commission. I am your Master of Ceremonies, and I extend a warm welcome to all delegates to my home, the beautiful Commonwealth of the Bahamas, proud hosts of this year's meeting. At this time, we are honored to invite you to witness a defining moment of this opening ceremony, the procession of the bank's governors. We kindly ask that you hold your applause until all governors have been announced and are in place. Leading the procession, representing the bank's 5 British overseas territories, Anguilla, the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, Montserrat, and the Turks and Caicos Islands, islands renowned for their natural beauty, commitment to preserving its natural environment, cultural charm, biodiversity, resilience, and vibrant tourism economies. Please welcome Anguilla's first ever female premier, a history-making leader, and a powerful symbol of progress and possibility across the Caribbean. The first governor leading off the procession, the Honorable Cora Hodge Richardson. From Antigua and Barbuda, the home of world-class sailing, rich cultural heritage, and a strong voice for small island developing states on the global stage, where there's a beach for every day of the year and a legacy of excellence from cricket, home of Sir Vivian Richards, and a remarkable legacy of West Indies legends, including Sir Andy Roberts, Sir Richie Richardson, Sir Curtly Ambrose, well known for its global advocacy. Kindly join me in welcoming Mr. Whitfield Harris, alternate governor and advisor at the Ministry of Finance. Representing Barbados, the proud home of the vibrant Crop Over Festival and of global icons from Sir Garfield Sobers to Rihanna, a distinguished nation at the forefront of climate advocacy and financial innovation, leading the call for reform of development finance for vulnerable states and helping shape the future of sustainable development on the world stage. Please welcome the Honorable Ryan Strawn, Minister of Finance. Representing Belize, a country at the forefront of ocean conservation and home to the world's second largest barrier reef, where the rhythms of Garifuna culture were carried to the world by Andy Palacio, the homeland of George Price, and a country whose influence spans culture, sport, and global achievement. Please welcome Dr. the Honorable Osman Martinez, Minister of State. From Brazil, Latin America's largest economy, a global agricultural powerhouse, and a key driver of South-South cooperation, the land of Pelé, a global cultural icon, and one of the world's most dynamic and influential economies, we welcome Ms. Marcela Tetnazer Laiz, Temporary Alternate Director. From Canada, a global leader in innovation, inclusive growth, and multilateral cooperation, the nation of global statesmen and champions of diversity, including Prime Minister Lester Pearson, Nobel Prize laureate, we welcome Mr. Philippe Hall, Temporary Alternate Governor. Representing Colombia, a nation rich in biodiversity and increasingly recognized for its leadership in sustainable development and regional integration, the homeland of Nobel laureate Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and one of the world's most biodiverse countries, please welcome Ms. Alba Martinez Barrera, Temporary Alternate Governor. From the People's Republic of China, cornerstone of global trade and development finance, with a long legacy of innovation and transformation, an ancient civilization that gave the world many innovations, and a modern driver of global development, we're honored to welcome Mr. Lu Li, Temporary Alternate Governor. From Germany, renowned for engineering excellence, economic strength, and leadership in climate and energy transition, the nation that gave the world the printing press and pioneered the modern automobile, birthplace of Beethoven and Einstein, please welcome Mr. Fabian Clem, Temporary Alternate Governor. Representing Grenada, the Spice Island, celebrated for its rich culture, natural beauty, and growing resilience agenda, please welcome the Honorable Lennox Andrews, Governor. From Guyana, one of the world's fastest growing economies, an emerging energy powerhouse, helping reshape regional prospects, please welcome Dr. Tarshand Balogim, Temporary Alternate Governor. Representing Haiti, nation of profound historical significance, symbolizing resilience, cultural strength, and the enduring spirit of its people, please welcome Mr. Jean Boucaud Jean-Jacques, Temporary Alternate Governor. From Italy, a nation whose legacy spans art, innovation, and global influence across centuries of civilization, please welcome Mr. Ludovica Soderini, Temporary Alternate Governor. Representing Jamaica, a cultural superpower whose music, athletic excellence, and global influence continue to inspire the world, please welcome Miss Darlene Morrison, Alternate Governor. From Mexico, a dynamic economy bridging North and Latin America, rich in history, culture, and global partnerships, please welcome Ms. Yunen Hernandez, Temporary Alternate Governor. Representing St. Kitts and Nevis, Ms. Laverne Keeley, Temporary Alternate Governor, Deputy Financial Secretary, Ministry of Finance. Representing St. Lucia, a nation of breathtaking beauty, home of Nobel laureates, and a champion of sustainable development, please welcome the Honorable Wayne Gerard, Temporary Alternate Governor. From St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the gems of the Antilles, and a powerful advocate for climate justice and Caribbean resilience, please welcome Prime Minister and CDB Governor, Dr. the Honorable Godwin Friday. Representing Suriname, a richly diverse nation where cultures converge and biodiversity thrives. Please welcome Mr. Vincent Fernandez, temporary alternate governor. From Trinidad and Tobago, the birthplace of steel pan and home to one of the region's most dynamic energy sectors, please welcome Mr. Dorian Noel, temporary alternate governor. Representing the United Kingdom, a long-standing partner in development finance and global economic leadership, please welcome Ms. Sarah Labat de Creve, temporary alternate governor. And from Venezuela, one of the world's most biodiverse nations, rich in natural resources and cultural heritage, please welcome Ambassador Raul Licausi, alternate governor. We now also welcome to the stage the distinguished members of the head table. Please join me in receiving CDB's Bank Secretary, Ms. Alana Goodman. Vice President, Corporate Services, Mrs. Jillian Charles Golop. Vice President of Operations, Dr. Isaac Solomon. President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Daniel Best, Chairman of the Board of Governors. The Honorable Michael B. Halkitis, MP, Minister of Finance of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And ladies and gentlemen, please stand as we welcome the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, KC, MP. Before we welcome the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, please also join me in welcoming the Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas, I, Chester Cooper. And now join me in welcoming the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Philip Edward Davis, KC, MP. Ladies and gentlemen, these distinguished representatives stand at the highest level of decision-making within the Caribbean Development Bank, each bringing the voice of their nation and together shaping the future of development across our region. Please join me now in warmly recognizing the Board of Governors of the Caribbean Development Bank. We also wish to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Dr. Natalia Wheatley, Premier of the British Virgin Islands. Ladies and gentlemen, the governors are now in place, and we are ready to begin the 56th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, as we commence this historic gathering, I invite you to join us in paying tribute to our host nation, the country I call home. Please keep standing for the national anthem of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you. It is often said that the future of our nation and our region rests in the hands of our young people. This morning, we are delighted to showcase some of the finest young musical talent in the Bahamas. As you take your seat, please join me in welcoming the National Youth Orchestra of the Bahamas. Please give another round of applause for our National Youth Orchestra. What an absolutely amazing display of Bahamian talent. Now, I would be remiss as a Bahamian, and in particularly in the presence of our Prime Minister and our Deputy Prime Minister, who's the former Minister of Tourism, if I didn't use this opportunity to plug the Bahamas. We know that most of you are here for some very serious business, but if that didn't just convince you to explore Bahamian culture while you're here, I'm not sure what would. And even if you're not able to get out of the hotel and explore our culture, we beg that you put your toes in the sand, dip your feet in the ocean, and we're sure that you are going to want to return to the Bahamas. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we formally begin our deliberations, it is fitting that we pause to seek divine guidance and wisdom for the discussions ahead and for the continued prosperity and development of our region. Please welcome now the Venerable James Palacios, who will offer the opening blessing.
Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we acknowledge your presence and we thank you for it. Your presence among us during the course of this 56th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank. We thank you for those who have come from near and far, not only to enjoy the fellowship, but to chart the course for many generations yet unborn. In a world of so many uncertainties, we thank you that we are such an excellent example of Caribbean unity and stability and success. Help us to humbly show the world what can be accomplished when Caribbean people unite. We thank you for our partners from distant land, as we thank you that we all share this common humanity. We thank you, Lord, and remember fondly those whose vision it was to found this august body. Let us remember that we sit in the shade of a tree we did not plant, and we are planting a tree in whose shade we will not sit. Bless our proceedings, Lord, and may it redound to your honor and glory and the building up of the Caribbean region, and indeed the world. In your Son's holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Palacios, for those thoughtful and uplifting words. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to the official opening of the 56th annual meeting of the Board of Governors of the Caribbean Development Bank. It is my honor to invite to the podium the Chairman of the Board of Governors of the Caribbean Development Bank, Governor for the Bahamas, and Minister of Finance for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Minister Michael B. Halkitis. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Griffin. Good morning to all. I extend warm greetings to our distinguished leaders, prime ministers, governors, honored guests, members of the diplomatic corps, members of civil society, representatives of the private sector, our regional and international partners, and especially the young people of our Caribbean community who carry the promise of tomorrow. It is both a privilege and a profound responsibility to stand before you at this opening ceremony as we gather under the timely and compelling theme, Forging the Caribbean's Future, Strategic Solutions for Uncertain Times. Those words capture the reality of the moment in which we are living. We meet at a time when uncertainty has become the defining condition of the global landscape. Around the world, nations are grappling with economic volatility, geopolitical tensions, technological disruption, climate emergencies, food insecurity, rising debt burdens, and widening inequality. For the Caribbean, these challenges are not abstract headlines. They are lived experiences. We know what it means to rebuild after hurricanes devastate entire communities. We know what it means to confront rising costs while protecting vulnerable families. We know what it means to defend our economies against shocks that we did not create. And yet, despite these realities, the Caribbean continues to stand with resilience, creativity, courage, and hope. Indeed, the story of the Caribbean has always been a story of resilience. Our ancestors survived slavery, colonialism, displacement, exploitation, and hardship. They built cultures that transform pain into music, struggle into strength, and diversity into unity. They laid the foundation for nations that continue to inspire the world through perseverance and innovation. Today, however, resilience alone is no longer enough. The future demands strategy, the future demands transformation, the future demands bold leadership and collective action. The question before us is not whether uncertainty exists. It does. The real question is whether we will allow uncertainty to define us or whether we will define the future ourselves. And I believe wholeheartedly that the Caribbean possesses the talent, the intellect, the resources, and the determination to shape a future that is resilient, inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous. But to achieve this future, we must confront several urgent realities. First, we must recognize that climate change remains the single greatest existential threat to our region. The Caribbean contributes minimally to global emissions, yet we remain amongst the most vulnerable regions in the world to climate disasters. Hurricanes grow stronger, coastal erosion accelerates, sea levels continue to rise, agriculture, tourism, fisheries, and infrastructure all face increasing pressure from a changing climate. Caribbean leaders and institutions continue to emphasize that resilience and climate adaptation are no longer optional. They are essential to survival and sustainable development. But, ladies and gentlemen, amid this challenge lies opportunity. The Caribbean can become a global leader in climate resilience and sustainable development. We can expand renewable energy. We can invest in resilient infrastructure. We can strengthen food security through climate-smart agriculture. We can unlock the potential of the blue economy and create industries that protect our oceans while generating jobs and innovation. The transition towards green economies is not merely an environmental necessity. It is an economic opportunity for our people. Second, we must strengthen regional unity and cooperation. The Caribbean has always been stronger when we act together. No single nation in our region can confront global uncertainty alone, but together, through coordinated policy, shared innovation, and collective advocacy, we possess a powerful voice on the international stage. Whether the issue is climate finance, trade reform, digital transformation, food security, or access to development financing, our strength lies in unity. As United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres recently stated, quote, "A unified Caribbean is an unstoppable force," end quote. And indeed, our unity must extend beyond governments alone. The future of the Caribbean cannot be built solely in parliament chambers or conference rooms. It must also be shaped by entrepreneurs, educators, farmers, artists, researchers, innovators, labor leaders, and youth advocates. It requires collaboration between the public sector and private sector, between academia and industry, and between civil society and policymakers. The challenges we face are interconnected, and therefore our solutions must also be interconnected. Third, we must place young people at the center of regional development. Across the Caribbean, young people are already leading change. They are launching businesses, driving technological innovation, advancing for climate justice, building creative industries, and reimagining what Caribbean leadership can look like. Yet, too many young people still face unemployment, migration pressures, limited access to financing, and unequal educational opportunities. We cannot speak about forging the future while excluding those who will inherit it. And therefore, we must invest intentionally in education, digital skills, entrepreneurship, research, and leadership development. We must create pathways for young people not only to participate in the economy, but to lead it. The future Caribbean economy will be powered not only by natural resources, but by human creativity, digital innovation, and knowledge-based industries. And this leads to another critical point: technology and innovation. Artificial intelligence, digital finance, renewable technologies, and global connectivity are rapidly transforming the global economy. If the Caribbean fails to adapt, we risk being left behind. But if we embrace innovation strategically, we can position ourselves competitively in a changing global environment. Digital transformation can improve healthcare, education, governance, trade, and financial inclusion. Technology can help small businesses access global markets. Innovation can strengthen disaster preparedness and modernize public services. However, technological progress must be inclusive. We must ensure that rural communities, small island states, vulnerable populations, and underserved citizens are not excluded from the benefits of modernization. True development is measured not only by economic growth, but by whether people feel safer, more empowered, and more hopeful about their future. Ladies and gentlemen, the Caribbean also faces serious economic vulnerabilities that demand strategic solutions. Most of our economies remain heavily dependent on tourism, imports, and external markets. Global disruptions, from pandemics to supply chain crises to geopolitical conflict, have shown us the danger of overdependence. Economic diversification is therefore no longer a luxury. It is a necessity. We must strengthen agriculture and food production. We must support small and medium-sized companies. We must deepen regional trade. We must invest in manufacturing, logistics, renewable energy, financial services, and the creative economy. We must also advocate for fairer access to global financing systems that recognize the unique vulnerabilities of small island developing states. Caribbean institutions and international leaders continue to call for reforms to global financial systems that better account for vulnerability, resilience, and sustainable development needs. Too often, our countries are classified as middle income while carrying overwhelming debt burdens and facing repeated climate disasters. Traditional measurements fail to capture the true realities of vulnerability in our region. The Caribbean deserves development systems that are fair, equitable, and responsive to our circumstances. But even as we advocate globally, we must also act regionally. We must strengthen governance, transparency, and institutional capacity. Strong institutions create investor confidence. Strong institutions improve service delivery. Strong institutions help societies withstand crises and maintain stability during uncertain time. Caribbean development leaders continue to emphasize institutional strengthening as essential to resilience and long-term prosperity. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, we must maintain faith in ourselves. The Caribbean never lacked brilliance. We have produced world-renowned scholars, athletes, artists, scientists, innovators, and statesmen. Our cultural influence extends far beyond our geographic size. Our people continue to achieve greatness on every continent. What we need now is the confidence to believe that Caribbean solutions can solve Caribbean challenges. The future we seek will not arrive automatically. It will require vision, it will require sacrifice, it will require courage, and it will require partnership. But history has already shown us that when the Caribbean moves with purpose, extraordinary things happen. And so this morning, as we officially open these meetings, let us commit ourselves to more than dialogue. Let us commit ourselves to action. Let this ceremony mark the beginning of a renewed collaboration. Let it inspire innovative thinking and strategic partnerships. Let it strengthen our determination to confront uncertainty, not with fear, but with confidence and resolve. The Caribbean stands at a defining moment. The choices we make today will shape the opportunities available to future generations. They will determine whether our societies become more resilient or more vulnerable, more inclusive or more divided, more sustainable or more fragile. But I remain optimistic. I am optimistic because I believe in the strength of our Caribbean people. I believe in our resilience. I believe in our ingenuity. And I believe that even in uncertain times, the Caribbean possesses the power, to forge a future of dignity, sustainability, unity, and shared prosperity. And so let us therefore move forward together with vision in our minds, courage in our hearts, and determination in our actions. Together, we can forge the Caribbean future we deserve. Thank you, and may these meetings be productive, inspiring, and transformative for our entire region. Thank you very much, and good morning. I now invite the Governor for St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. the Honorable Godwin Friday, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, to the podium to give the reply to the welcome address on behalf of the borrowing member countries.
Good morning, the Honorable Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Philip Davis, the Honorable Chairman of the Board of Governors, Michael Helkides, President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Daniel Best, the Honorable Prime Ministers, Premiers, Ministers, fellow governors, members of the Board of Directors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to respond to the welcome address on behalf of the borrowing member countries of the bank. I feel blessed. We are grateful to the government and the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas for the gracious welcome and hospitality extended to us as guests. You made us feel like the family that indeed we are. Personally, I am delighted to be back in Nassau after so many years. We commend the President of the bank, Mr. Daniel Best, the management and dedicated staff of the bank for the tireless preparatory work and strategic foresight and responsiveness that have set the stage perfectly for the deliberations here. We gather under the theme, Forging the Caribbean's Future, Strategic Solutions for Uncertain Times, which captures well the urgency of this historical moment. We are navigating fast-moving, shifting global geopolitical currents. Old alliances are strained, and long-accepted conventions are being questioned, with no reassuring answers, requiring us now, more than ever, to proceed with a united regional front. The borrowing member countries face a challenging economic environment characterized by persistent structural vulnerabilities, tightening global credit conditions, and severe climate shocks. Central government's debt remains chronically high, with debt to GDP ratios exceeding the prudential 60% target in 9 member countries. In my own country, exceeding 113%. This high debt burden severely limits borrowing countries' ability to fund necessary investments to accelerate economic growth and protect the most vulnerable of our citizens. We face tightening supply chains, rising shipping costs, escalating fuel prices, and high cost of living. Presently, these problems are associated with the Middle East war. But we also know that absent that conflict, we would still be facing difficult economic conditions in our countries. We are further constrained by a challenging international aid environment. Official development assistance from partner governments has experienced a marked decline, exacerbating the critical financing gap. Caribbean nations are forced to do more with less. At a time when the region requires an estimated $14 billion annually for comprehensive climate response, it mobilizes less than 10% of that amount. It is therefore imperative that our development partners become more adaptive, more responsive, and willing to provide highly concessional financing and dedicated resources for loss and damage that will not worsen a bad debt situation. We acknowledge that the Caribbean Development Bank is an indispensable partner in the project of regional economic transformation promised upon regional integration. However, regional economic integration is sustainable only if partners all derive benefit from it and economic disparities among member countries do not grow too wide. The bank is uniquely positioned to promote that end. The CDB is the only multilateral development bank whose core constituents and owners are the Caribbean people. Through decades of working directly in this space, the bank has developed a wealth of experience, talent, and invaluable knowledge about our countries and region. The bank has become indispensable to our development. Consequently, the CDB is well placed to speak credibly and in a focused manner for its Caribbean constituents and to be in the lead in designing solutions tailored to the needs of our economically and climate vulnerable small open economies. A striking demonstration of this transformative impact is observed in my own country in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which after decades of repeated severe shocks have seen efforts on the part of our country and the bank to develop resilient infrastructure. The modern port in Kingstown, the school improvement projects, the road management and rural road programs, all fortify our country in the face of shocks. These interventions prove that when targeted CDB capital is merged with local knowledge, it has the power to transform lives, elevate communities, and build climate-resilient economic assets. To safeguard Caribbean futures, the borrowing member countries call for greater collaboration in building resilience in a comprehensive way, spanning environmental, economic, and social dimensions. This comprehensive resilience framework must guide the bank's operational priorities in the years ahead. The Caribbean has entered the 2026 hurricane season, still nursing severe wounds inflicted by Hurricane Beryl in 2024 and Melissa in 2025. We are familiar with the enormous economic toll those extreme weather events extracted, and therefore must respond effectively. The environmental strategy of the CDB and borrowing countries must focus on building climate resilience, economic assets, upgrading coastal infrastructure, and expanding early warning systems. The bank's Climate Change Project Preparation Fund is critical in resolving resource bottlenecks, enabling timely and enhance capital flows for adaptation. Economic resilience requires that there be support for countries that absorb shocks while sustaining inclusive growth. The borrowing member countries must aggressively pursue economic diversification across modern frontiers, including digitalizing public services, reducing high fossil fuel imports by exploiting renewable energy sources such as the geothermal projects in Dominica and St. Kitts Nevis, and investing aggressively in solar power. Promoting sustainable use and management of our marine resources, and promoting value-added agro-processing to enhance domestic food security, reduce food imports, and encourage export. Growth, is misguided and unsustainable if it leaves vulnerable populations behind. Social resilience requires strengthening people's ability to withstand shocks by expanding access to essential services and developing responsive and effective social protection systems. Key initiatives like the Basic Needs Trust Fund must continue to act as flagship community development programs, creating inclusive, safe environments across participating countries. Borrowing member countries express their support for the bank's institutional reform agenda, known as CDB Forward, which envisages reforms in governance, in addressing the implementation deficit or gap, workforce considerations, making the bank's operating model more proactive and client-centered. Considering our structural challenges in the region, the bank must make its development impact felt with greater speed and with far more reach. The borrowing member countries have delivered a clear mandate. We must move swiftly to implement the transformative reforms to eliminate friction and drive our institution forward. The need is urgent, and therefore the time to act is now. The borrowing member countries urge the bank to accelerate project implementation, address the persistent issue of undisbursed loans, and reform its procurement frameworks by adopting digital tools and risk-based approaches. We also encourage the bank to aggressively embrace and leverage partnerships with other multilateral development banks, as well as bilateral development partners, to mobilize private capital and maximize co-financing. To sustain this ambitious agenda, the borrowing member countries appeal directly to all CDB shareholders and non-regional partners to fully support the bank in its strategic direction. The 10-year strategic plan requires robust capital backing and expanded resources. In this regard, full support must be given to the Special Development Fund, SDF 11, which remains the lifeblood of concessional financing for the region's vulnerable members. Resistance, adaptation, and an unconquerable spirit define the historical experience of the Caribbean people. Despite our limitations, we continue to deliver better lives for our people. However, the region's development path must not be defined or be limited by our vulnerability. It must be shaped by our deliberate choices, our capable institutions, and by regional solidarity. In the words of Sir Arthur Lewis, the bank's first president, and I quote, "The Caribbean people can solve their own problems. But first, they must find the secret that will put hope, initiative, direction, and an unconquerable will into the management of their affairs." That advice remains relevant today. Let us enter these meetings committed to working collaboratively on these vital governance reforms and sustainable development pathways. And may our choices foster a stable, inclusive, and thriving Caribbean that is sustainable for generations to come. I thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Governor. I now call on the temporary alternate governor for Brazil, Ms. Marcela Tetzner Leis, to give the reply to the welcome address on behalf of the regional non-borrowing member countries.
Good morning. Dear Honorable Prime Minister of the Bahamas, the Most Honorable Philip Davis, President Daniel Bast, esteemed members of the bank seated at this table, and all the CDB members, fellow governors and directors, and distinguished guests attending the 66th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank. Good morning to you all. It is a great honor to be here representing regional non-borrowing members country, and particularly Brazil, at the highest level meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank. The importance of the CDB extends far beyond the borrowing countries of the Caribbean, as the bank fosters dialogue, cooperation, and development across the wider Latin American and Caribbean region and beyond. 1 year ago, in 2025, Brazil had the great honor of hosting the bank's annual meeting in our capital, Brasilia, and also the Brazil-Caribbean Summit, bringing together representatives from 16 nations under the motto, "Drawing Closer to Unite." President Lula put forward priority areas for cooperation, including environment, energy transition, food security, connectivity, and diplomacy. It took several months of intense work and dedication from our team to make the bank's annual meeting possible. Hence, we know firsthand how much effort takes place behind the scenes of a meeting like this. For that reason, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to the CDB management and, above all, to our host, the Bahamas, for their warm hospitality and excellent organization of this event. For more than a century, CDB has played a vital role in promoting economic cooperation, integration, and development among Caribbean countries through the financing and support of impactful public and private investments. Over time, the bank has continually evolved to respond to the needs of the region and to an ever-changing global landscape. This year, with the launch of the 2026-2035 strategic plan, we are beginning a new cycle. In a world marked by geopolitical instability as well as growing climate and environmental risks, the central theme of the plan could not be more timely: resilience. In this regard, the strategy is particularly successful in organizing its framework around three interconnected pillars of resilience: social, economic, and environmental. These dimensions are inseparable from one another, and it is increasingly evident that economic growth and social well-being are profoundly linked to environmental sustainability. As it engendered this outward-looking strategy, CDB did also undertake important internal reforms. For nearly 2 years, the bank and the members have been engaged in an extensive governance review process. As chair of the Governance Review Committee, Brazil has had the opportunity to follow this work very closely. It is, therefore, with great satisfaction that we witness the conclusion of an important step of this governance review during this meeting. From this point forward, it is time to roll up our sleeves. It is time to move from strategy to implementation, not only in delivering the 10-year strategic vision, but also in carrying out the governance reforms that will make the bank stronger, more efficient, and better equipped to fulfill its mission. May this meeting serve as a moment for reflection, dialogue, and the construction of solutions that allow us to progress even further toward these shared objectives. I wish everyone a successful and productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. And finally, I call on the temporary alternate governor for China, Mr. Liu Lei, to give the reply to the welcome address on behalf of the non-regional, non-borrowing member countries.
Thank you, Chair. Your Excellencies, Honorable Mr. Prime Minister, Honorable Chairman and members of Board of Governors, Honorable President Daniel Best, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of non-regional, non-borrowing members, I sincerely thank the government and people of Bahamas. Thank you for your warm hospitality in hosting the 56th annual meeting. We would also like to thank CDB team for the excellent organization. This annual meeting's theme, Forging Caribbean's Future, Strategic Solutions for Uncertain Times, is very timely. Caribbean currently faces significant challenges, including climate vulnerability, external shocks, constrained fiscal space, rising inflation, and tightening financing conditions for the global and regional development. In this context, building and maintaining strong institutions, deepening partnerships, and delivering at scale will be essential to sustaining progress. We greatly value our partnership with the Caribbean and our membership in CDB, and we are proud to work together to strengthen resilience, reduce poverty, and promote inclusive and sustainable growth across this region. We would like to recognize the strong momentum established under the leadership of President Daniel Best. Since he took office in February 2025, in a very relatively short period, the bank has made progress sharpening its strategic direction and has achieved many important milestones. President Best and the senior management team have demonstrated a commitment to advancing institutional governance, strengthening delivery, and positioning the bank to meet future challenges. We welcome the Strategic Plan 2026 to 2035. This plan presents an ambitious vision to strengthen social, economic, and environmental resilience in this region. We also support the comprehensive governance review and the bank's first MOPAN assessment. Together, these initiatives build a strong foundation and evidence base. They enhance the bank's ability to deliver for the region. The CDB Forward Roadmap presents a necessary and forward-looking reform agenda to modernize the bank's governance, operating model, institutional culture, and financial capacity. We call upon CDB management to move decisively into high-quality implementation and to look forward to engaging closely with the bank on these efforts. The process will be central to enhancing institutional performance, strengthening delivery, and ultimately achieving greater development impact. We congratulate the bank on the important progress made in strengthening its risk management framework. The use of innovative financial instruments has supported its credit rating and helped increase lending headroom. We are pleased that the bank is operating at the frontier of innovation for MDB balance sheet optimization. Through the exposure exchange agreements with other regional multilateral development institutions and the first loss portfolio credit guarantee with the Government of Canada, which is consistent with the G20 capital adequacy framework agenda. Looking ahead, a central priority will be translating this strategic direction into tangible results for Caribbean. The effectiveness of banks' support will depend on our ability to respond to the specific needs and priorities of its members, focusing on the bank's areas of comparative advantages and meaningful impacts. Strong, focused country engagement strategies will therefore be critical to ensure country ownership, clear strategic direction, coherence across instruments, and measurable achievements. As the bank continues to advance its strategic ambitions, we underscore the importance of strong accountability to shareholders, contributors to the Special Development Fund, client countries, and communities the bank is intended to serve. Continued focus on outcomes, institutional performance, disciplined balance between ambition and delivery, the efficient use of scarce resources to safeguard the bank's financial sustainability will be essential to sustain confidence and support for its work. We encourage CDB to strengthen its procurement standards in line with broader MDB reforms, promoting quality and cost effectiveness, supporting innovation, market engagement, and local employment, thus advancing poverty reduction goals and private sector-led growth. We also encourage the continued and systematic sharing of evaluations and analytical studies and application of lessons learned across all of the bank's instruments. This will help reinforce learning, transparency, and continuous improvement. Finally, we wish to underline the importance of partnership. We encourage the bank to continue strengthening collaboration with other MDBs, development partners, and the private sector. Deeper coordination and harmonization can reduce transaction costs for countries and maximize development effect. The bank plays a vital role as trusted regional partner and convener to align efforts and amplify collective impact. As always, China, together with other non-regional, non-borrowing members, stands ready to continue working in partnership with the bank. We believe that through partnership, we can turn today's strategic choices into lasting outcomes to support resilience, inclusion, and sustainable growth across Caribbean. Congratulations for this excellent annual meeting. Once again, thank you.
Thank you, Governor. I now invite the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Mr. Daniel Best, to the podium to address the meeting. President Best.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to our honorable Prime Ministers, honorable Premiers, Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished partners, colleagues, and friends. There could not be a more fitting time or place for us to gather for this, the 56th annual meeting of the Board of Governors, than here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Let me begin with appreciation and, of course, congratulations to the government and people of the Bahamas. Thank you very much for your warm hospitality. It reflects the very best of the Caribbean spirit, welcoming, united, and forward-looking. To Prime Minister, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, congratulations on your historic re-election. I wish you every success in this new chapter as you continue to advance the progress and shared prosperity of the Bahamian people. Today, I invite us to reflect on how far we have come, how much we have overcome, and on what this moment is asking of us, because history has a remarkable way of speaking to the present. More than 56 years ago, during a period of profound change, Caribbean leaders gathered with a bold idea. Across the region, countries were emerging from colonialism, building new institutions, defining new identities, and confronting an uncertain future. In the face of those realities, those leaders understood something very important. They understood that uncertainty was not a reason to retreat. It was a reason to build. And so they built. They built the Caribbean Development Bank, an institution created by Caribbean people for Caribbean people, grounded in the belief that our future would be stronger if we faced our challenges together. It is fitting that the inaugural meeting of this institution took place right here in the Bahamas. We returned here in 1980 as countries confronted difficult economic conditions. We gathered again here in 2010 amid the aftermath of the Great Recession. And now in 2026, we meet once more in a world marked by geopolitical fragmentation, climate volatility, technological disruption, public health risk, and shrinking development finance. Different crises, different circumstances, but the same question. How do we build a stronger Caribbean in uncertain times? Friends, uncertainty is not new to us. It is part of our region's story. And every generation before us answered uncertainty with action. So as I reflect on our theme for the coming week, Forging the Caribbean's Future, Strategic Solutions for Uncertain Times, CDB commits that this annual meeting will ensure that we isolate challenges and issues, identify innovations and solutions, implement actions to support meaningful change, and build permanent partnerships. These efforts will drive meaningful impact that will help the bank to innovate, transform, and thrive. Elements of my vision of rebirth for the bank. At the bank, we recognize that many of the challenges we face are not new, but they are being intensified by a rapidly changing global landscape. The impacts of climate change are now more pronounced than ever before. I had the opportunity to visit Jamaica in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. And what I witnessed was nothing short of gut-wrenching. Communities flattened, homes gone, and a hospital barely standing. And yet within those damaged walls, nurses and doctors pressed on, working tirelessly to care for the injured. Because that is who we are as a region. We persevere even in the face of devastation. At the same time, the changing global landscape is amplifying external shocks and geopolitical tensions. and their effects are reaching our shores with increasing speed and intensity. We see it in rising oil prices. We feel it in supply chain disruptions that threaten our food security. Uncertainty is now the norm. And as we become more interconnected, the pace of technological disruption is transforming all aspects of our economies and societies. It is present in rural communities where households still struggle with basic connectivity. It is evident in the growing cybersecurity threats that put our personal and national data at risk. Yet it is this very interconnection and integration that holds the greatest promise for our region, unlocking our ability to compete on the global stage, attract world-class investment, and ultimately build resilient, dynamic societies where our young people choose not to leave, but to stay, thrive, and shape the future. Our strength lies in our shared history. Our opportunity lies in our common challenges, and our success will be determined by how boldly we embrace regional collaboration and partnership so that we can do better, move faster, and grow stronger together. Friends, since we last spoke in Brasilia in 2025, we have been busy. We have approved and disbursed in excess of US $400 million to advance critical infrastructure, strengthen educational outcomes, support climate change and disaster response, and strengthen the development of the private sector across our region. We achieved a record US $226.7 million in climate finance commitments while mobilizing new resources through the Green Climate Fund. Notably, 3 CDB-led GCF proposals were approved, including the first single-country GCF project right here in the Bahamas, strengthening water security and resilience to future storms. Across the region, we are driving impact at scale. In partnership with IDB and regional governments, we are leading a unified effort to retrofit homes in more than 15 countries, transforming vulnerable housing into resilient shelters and protecting millions of Caribbean families from climate shocks. At the community level, resilience continues to grow. Through the Basic Needs Trust Fund, 92 projects have been completed across 9 countries, with a new $53.6 million cycle approved. But we are not stopping there. Our new 10-year strategic plan, 2026 to 2035, is anchored, as you have heard, in social, economic, and environmental resilience, because resilience must shape every investment we make. To translate this into action, we are focusing where it matters most. First, our youth. Nearly half of our population is under the age of 30. Yet too many remain disconnected from opportunity. This is not just a social challenge. It is an economic one. Our strategy prioritizes skills, entrepreneurship, and access to finance so that our young people can build their futures here at home. Let me tell you about Nkrumah Fong. Nkrumah is a young Jamaican innovator and founder of Ceres Labs, who is turning climate ambition into action with Vector One, a pilot technology designed to reduce emissions from vehicles, ships, ports, and generators and buildings. His breakthrough was accelerated through a CDB-funded regional clean tech incubator, implemented with the Caribbean Climate Innovation Center. With targeted support, he transformed an idea into a cutting-edge carbon absorption solution. Vector One shows how CDB investment in youth and innovation is driving climate resilience and green growth in the Caribbean. Second, stronger institutions. Development is about more than financing. It is about delivery. The real test is whether we can turn ideas into outcomes and commitments into tangible improvements in people's lives, because citizens do not experience strategies, they experience results. In Belize, our engagement went beyond financing. CDB supported an institutional diagnostic and governance reform program for the Development Finance Corporation, strengthening its governance, its operations, governance, and long-term sustainability. Today, DFC is a leading development finance institution in Belize, supporting private sector development through business lending, mortgage financing, and student loans. Third, climate action. Climate risk is not a future threat. It is our present reality. We are scaling up investments in resilient infrastructure, renewable energy, and disaster preparedness, while working with partners to unlock innovative financing to strengthen our region's resilience. By supporting institutions such as the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Efficiency and the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, we are helping to strengthen regional coordination, technical capacity, and policy coherence, ensuring that countries are better equipped to plan, respond, and deliver at scale. At its core, therefore, this strategy is about people. The entrepreneur seeking opportunity, the farmer facing uncertainty, and the young person deciding where their future lies. Resilience is not built on paper. It is built in lives. As I shared last year, this is a moment of rebirth for CDB. That is why we have developed an ambitious but practical reform program called CDB Forward. This is the vehicle that will allow us to increase our strategic plan's developmental impact. It is the bridge between vision and execution and rests on 4 pillars: an uncompromising culture of excellence, an improved operating model, enhanced governance and accountability, and strengthened financial capacity. CDB Forward speaks to how the bank must change, but more importantly, to why that change matters for our citizens. The cultural aspect is about who we are as an institution. For the bank, it means building a stronger sense of purpose, accountability, collaboration, and service. For the people we serve, a stronger culture means a bank that listens better, works more closely with countries, and remains deeply committed to improving lives through responsive and values-driven development. The operating model is about how we work. For the bank, it means becoming more agile, efficient, and effective in the way we design, finance, and implement our operations. It is about reducing delays, strengthening delivery, and making sure that our systems support results. For you, our clients, this means development support that reaches you faster, projects that are better prepared and better executed, and solutions that are more closely matched to their needs. Governance and accountability are about trust. For the bank, this means clearer roles, stronger oversight, and better decision making. For you, it means confidence that the institution is acting with integrity, stewarding resources wisely, and remaining focused on outcomes that matter. Financial capacity is about strength and possibility. For the bank, it means ensuring that we have the resources, tools, and financial resilience to respond at scale, at the scale this moment demands. For the people we serve, it means greater access to financing, stronger support for resilience and growth, and a bank that can do more to help countries confront climate risks, debt pressures, and developmental challenges. Ultimately, CDB Forward will position the bank to serve the Caribbean with greater purpose, credibility, and impact in a decade that will demand nothing less. Friends of CDB, as we look ahead to this week, we recognize that in a world defined by uncertainty, we must go further. We must move from commitment to execution, because uncertainty demands strategic solutions. This meeting is intentionally designed not just for dialogue, but for results, building partnerships and advancing implementations. Our seminars are no longer just discussions. They are solution labs focused on delivering practical responses to real challenges. The William G. DeMaas Lecture continues to anchor our thinking, challenging us to rethink development in a rapidly changing world. This year, Justice Dennis Barrow reminded us of a crucial point. Strong institutions, particularly judicial systems, are fundamental to resilience, investor confidence, and inclusive growth. We are also proud of the strong presence of the youth, not as observers, but as co-creators, ensuring that solutions for the future are shaped with those who will inherit it. Our platforms reflect this shift from ideas to action. The impact room is where strategy meets execution, advancing projects, partnerships, and private sector engagement. EdgeX connects innovation, technology, and development. From Dr. Ray Julian Furlong's work on transportation systems to our very own economist analysis of global uncertainty, these sessions focus on data-driven, forward-looking solutions. The Breakfast Exchange brings partners together to tackle financing and structural vulnerabilities facing SIDS, including climate and agricultural resilience. The President's Chat, with leaders from CABE and the OPEC Fund, centers on collaboration and how development institutions must evolve to respond effectively to today's challenges. But the true strength of this meeting lies in its people, governments, the private sector, IFI partners, civil society, academia, and voices too often unheard. Because inclusive solutions are the only ones that will ultimately endure. Friends, the moment before us is urgent, but it is also full of possibilities. The challenges we face are real, but so too is our capacity to overcome them together. And I say this with confidence because when I look across this room, I see something far more powerful than uncertainty. I see leadership. I see partnership. I see innovation. I see determination. And I see the same spirit that brought Caribbean leaders together more than 56 years ago. Those leaders looked beyond the crises of their moment and chose to build an institution that would serve generations they would never meet. Today, we are the beneficiaries of that vision because the Caribbean has never waited for history to happen to it. We have always been at our best when we had the courage to shape history ourselves. That was true when this bank was established. It was true through every challenge that follows. And it must be true again now. So let us leave this meeting with urgency. Let us leave with purpose. Let us leave with a renewed commitment to partnership. And let us leave determined to build a Caribbean that is stronger, greener, more resilient, more inclusive, and more prosperous than the one we inherited. Because if those visionary leaders who founded this institution could look upon us today, I believe they would ask only one thing of us: to be as bold in our moment as they were in theirs. I thank you.
Thank you very much, President Best. I now invite the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, to address the meeting. Please welcome him to the podium.
I adopt the protocol established and just welcome each and every one of you here. It is my honor, of course, to welcome you to the Bahamas and to open this 56th annual meeting of the Caribbean Development Bank. To every governor, every minister, and every partner who traveled here to be with us, I just say welcome. You've come to a nation that sees this bank as one of our own. It was built by our region. It answers to our region. It carries the purpose of our region. We have called this gathering Forging the Caribbean's Future. It is a strong theme, but we should be honest from the start, because honesty is the only foundation that holds. You cannot forge a future with borrowed fire. The world as it is has grown smaller, not larger. Capital that once moved freely now hesitates at our shores. Our banks lose correspondent relationships, and our businesses are cut away from a financial system that the rest of the world takes for granted. We are told, often at the same time, that we are too small to matter on the one hand, and too prosperous to be helped on the other. A single storm can erase a year of our national income in one night. That same storm can disqualify us from the financing we need to recover, because a formula written in a distant capital has decided that we are ineligible because we have graduated. Let me say in the serious of terms, we do not feel like graduates when the seas around us are rising. Climate finance, when it arrives, comes late. And too often it comes as a debt burden to our state. So we rebuild. But we borrow to rebuild. And the debt we carry crowds out the schools, the clinics, and the ability to invest in other opportunities that we owe our people. This is the world as it is. You know it. I'm here to name it honestly, because no lasting progress is built on a borrowed truth. We also have to be honest about ourselves. For too long, we have treated endurance like achievement. We have survived hurricanes and pandemics, debt and downturns, and we have called that strength. It is strength. But this morning I must say the harder thing. We have been resilient for so long that we have begun to mistake survival for progress. Surviving the storm is different from changing the conditions that create it. Enduring the old order is different from building a better one. A region that learns only to survive will be asked to survive again and again and again until survival is the only thing it knows how to do. And I say we, without exception, because the Bahamas lives with the same reality. We too have lived as tenants in a house we did not build, following rules drafted in rooms where we had no seat. I'm here as a leader who believes the time to build has arrived. Our own home. That is the truth at the center of our gathering. The global financial architecture was not designed for us. It was designed without our storms, our scale, and our future in mind. We've been tenants of this architecture across generations, and the rent keeps rising. The rules keep changing without our consent. And no outside power is coming to fix it for us. So we are left with one clear path. And I ask every governor in this hall to consider it. If we will not write the rules of our own financial future, then we will be left only to discover how to survive within the rules of others. Those who refuse to write the rules will, in the end, become tenants subjected to a state of perennial survival. There's no easier path. We simply wait for the house to repair itself. And we cannot do that. We're not the first to face this choice. I want to tell a story because it may be the most important thing I say to you this morning. Africa faced the same choice. African nations were told what we were told: too great a risk, too fragmented, too small to be financed at scale. And Africa made a choice. Africa did not knock louder. Africa built its own door. They founded the African Export-Import Bank, Afri-Exim Bank, an institution to finance African trade on African terms. They did not wait for permission. They began the work themselves. Look at what that institution can do now. This year, Afri-Exim Bank raised its commitment to our region from $3 billion United States dollars to $5 billion. More than $750 million has already reached our region. A pipeline of more than $2 billion is still to follow. They are building a trade center in Bridgetown, and they've turned their attention to something that should get the attention of everyone in this room: the creation of a Caribbean Export-Import Bank, a Caribbean Exim Bank, an institution that could finally be our own. We should be clear about what this means. It was not charity passing down from north to south. It was solidarity rising from south to south. It was one part of the global majority saying to another, we have built our own house, now we will help you build yours. Africa did not wait. The only question that remains this morning is whether we will. And I know what gives us some pause. It is not the cost of building. It is what I call a quieter doubt. The doubt that we can't act together at all. There are some, even in this room, who feel the pull of a familiar temptation to place one nation first, to pursue the national interest alone, and to leave the regional interest to fend for itself. I understand that temptation. Every leader here answers first to their own people. That is not a weakness. It is the duty of office. There is an African proverb that speaks directly to this moment. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The Caribbean has never needed speed. The Caribbean has always needed distance. And no single one of our economies, no matter how determined, can travel that distance on its own. So we must not allow ourselves to be turned against one another, competing for the same scarce capital, the same investor, the same narrow advantage, while the architecture that disadvantages every one of us is left untouched. When we are set against each other, we never win. And we must not tear down the institutions we have already begun to build for ourselves. CARICOM is the first house we built together. It is not finished. It is not perfect. No union of free nations is ever perfect. But you do not abandon the house you are building because the work grows harder or because a door begins to stick. You stay and you finish the work. We are a nation where our union is weak. We should strengthen it. Where it is broken, we should repair it. Where it has fallen short, we should not walk away. We should ask the harder question of how to make it work. Whether we choose to act together or apart, one truth will not bend to our preference. The same tide that lifts one of our islands lifts them all. The same storm that floods one of our shores threatens every other. We may sail under different flags, but we are passengers in the same vessel. No one bails water from one end of a sinking ship and claims he is safe. Some will say that this kind of ambition is wrong for uncertain times. I believe the opposite. Uncertainty is the reason to build. A sailor does not wait for calm water to learn his craft. He learns because the sea will never be still. So let me be practical, because a vision without a plan is only an idea. We must pool the strength we already have. No single Caribbean economy can finance its future alone. Together, we are a market the world has every reason to take seriously. It is no longer enough to be a region the world is willing to invest in. We must become a region willing to invest in itself. We must no longer accept that a credit rating built for a continent that should decide the fate of an archipelago. We must create tools of our own, regional guarantees, blended finance, mechanisms that reward our resilience instead of punishing our geography. We should be measured by the future we are willing to finance, not by the disasters we are forced to survive. We must use the institutions we already have, beginning with this one. The strategic plan of this bank for the years 2026 to 2035 gives us a foundation. We should build on it, not around it. And we must invest in the one asset that no agency can ever downgrade and that no storm can ever wash away: the mind of a Caribbean child. We owe our young people far more than survival. We owe them prosperity. And we owe them something even more powerful: a reason to stay in the region. Today, too many of our brightest leave these shores and do not return because the future they want is being built somewhere else. Every gifted mind that leaves tells us something about the future we have offered them. We must change that verdict. We owe our children more than a region to inherit. We owe them a region worth staying for. We should give them an education that teaches more than endurance. It must teach them to be curious, to question, to imagine, and to compete with any mind in any place in a world that changes faster than any curriculum can follow. A region that values curiosity is a region that can never be left behind. The future will not belong to those who simply endured it. It will belong to those who dared to build it. So let me be clear about where we now stand. This is not a storm to be waited out. It is a tide that has already turned. We do not seek a final room in another's house. We are laying a foundation of our own. We do not ask for a seat at a table that others have set. We are building the table. And we are no longer the small, the vulnerable, the high risk on another's ledger. We are the place where the Caribbean comes to forge its future. That is the name written on the door of this gathering. It should become the name on the door of the house we build. So what does this ask of us? It asks us to accept that resilience is no longer enough. Surviving a shock is not the same as shaping a future. A region that only endures will remain poorer, more fragile, and more dependent than it needs to be. And what must we do now? We must build. We must deepen our partnerships with Afri-Exim Bank, for example. We must move from speaking of a Caribbean Exim Bank to bringing one to life. We must give this bank's plan our political will, not polite applause. And we must finance the ambition of our children with the same seriousness we give to our debt. We cannot build the future of the Caribbean on the old order. That order is passing, and nostalgia for it is no strategy at all. This must be the era of possibility. But possibility is not a feeling we talk into existence. It is an institution we build with a balance sheet, with a building, and with a name. We have been tenants long enough. We are no longer asking for the keys to a house we did not build. We are laying the foundation of one that we will. History should not remember us as a generation that survived the old world. It should remember us as the generation that built the new one. To every nation of this region, ready to do the work, I say this morning, the Bahamas will build with you. Thank you. Together, let's forge this future with our own fire, with our own hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I now bring this opening ceremony to a close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We ask that all guests and attendees remain seated as the head table now leaves and proceeds to take a group photo, and the head table will be followed by all of the governors. We also ask that all governors return to this room after the photo session for 12:30. 11? Return at 12 p.m. Head table.
Sit down for an unprecedented frank exchange on global financial reform and debt sustainability for small states. We will bring you highlights and feedback from the high-level media roundtable, the climate breakfast exchange, and crucial seminars tackling the region's $11 billion clean energy investment index. It all started with
Governors, please follow the head table.
Stay with our news for continuous authoritative coverage of issues that matter directly to you, your family, and the entire community. Once again, I'm Tony Hall.